Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today's video is going to be an in-depth guide on breeding leopard geckos, those adorable and fascinating reptiles that make fantastic pets. If you've ever wondered about the process of breeding leopard geckos, you're in the right place. We'll cover everything from sex determination to egg incubation, so stay tuned. Before we dive into the exciting world of leopard gecko breeding, let's briefly discuss why these creatures make great candidates for captive breeding programs. Leopard geckos are not only charming and easy to handle, but also resilient and available in a variety of colors and patterns. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty of breeding these amazing creatures. As long as you start with healthy animals and follow the tips discussed below, you should have no trouble joining the growing ranks of leopard gecko breeders. Let's talk about sexing leopard geckos. The first step in breeding leopard geckos is determining their sex. This is crucial as you'll need at least one mixed-sex pair for successful breeding. In this section, we'll explore the two primary criteria for distinguishing between male and female leopard geckos, involving the examination of tail-base bulges and pores. There are two primary criteria you can consider when trying to distinguish male leopard geckos from female leopard geckos. To examine either, you'll have to begin by gently flipping your lizard upside down. Alternatively, you can place your lizard in a clear-bottomed container and then raising the container over your head. In either case, look for the presence of two things, which indicate that the lizard in question is male. Twin bulges along each side of the tail base. These are caused by the lizard's hemipenes, which are held within the tail base when not in use. Female leopard geckos do not have these bulges. A V-shaped row of pores between the lizard's legs. These pores are visually distinct and quite obvious in male lizards, but they are only faintly apparent in female lizards if they can be distinguished at all. Males will often have waxy secretions emerging from the pores. It is always easier to learn how to determine the sex of any species by examining a large number of individuals. But if that isn't possible, you may want to consider reviewing as many photos of the relevant region as possible. Let's talk about pre-breeding conditioning. Once you've identified a compatible pair, it's time to prepare them for the breeding process. Breeding can be physically demanding, especially for females. Learn how to condition your geckos for optimal health over 1 to 3 months, including tips on feeding, calcium supplementation, and a veterinary checkup. But the first step in this process does not involve breeding the lizards at all. First, you must ensure that they are both in the best possible health and physical condition. Breeding can be taxing for the animals involved, so it is important that the animals start in tip-top shape. This is especially true of the female, whose body will not only have to cope with the physical trauma of the breeding process, but also the demands egg deposition will place upon her body over the course of the season. So, this means you'll want to spend 1 to 3 months feeding the lizards heavily. Neither should be allowed to become grossly overweight, but you want them to have full, plump-looking tails. You'll also want to be sure you've provided enough supplemental calcium for the female during this time. But before you begin this part of the process, have your veterinarian examine your intended breeders and screen them for illnesses or parasites. This way, you'll have plenty of time to address such issues before pairing your animals. Let's talk about cycling. Cycling is a crucial step in priming your geckos for the breeding season. Discover different approaches to cycling, from creating a simulated winter to maintaining constant temperatures throughout the year. We'll guide you through the process, emphasizing the importance of maintaining hydration and gradually restoring normal conditions. In the case of leopard geckos, this means that you must stop feeding them for about 1 week so they can empty their digestive tracts, and then you'll drop their temperatures to the low 70s. Reduce the amount of daylight your lizards receive each day if possible, and be sure that you continue to provide water at all times. Once you're ready to conclude the cycling period, gradually restore normal conditions over the course of a few days and begin feeding the lizards heavily again. However, leopard gecko breeders don't always utilize a cycling period. Some keepers simply maintain relatively constant temperatures all year long and experience good results. So, you'll just have to decide which approach you'd like to pursue. Let's talk about pairing. With your geckos primed and ready, it's time for pairing. We'll discuss various methods, including brief periods of pairing with intervals of rest, and the importance of avoiding prolonged cohabitation. Choose an approach that suits your situation, ensuring a stress-free environment for your geckos. For example, some breeders pair the lizards for brief periods, lasting several hours to a full day, and then separate them again for a day or two of rest and recovery. They'll usually repeat this process throughout the breeding season to ensure all clutches deposited by the female are fertile. Other breeders simply leave their lizards in the same enclosure for the duration of the breeding season. Some even maintain their lizards together all year long. We highly recommend avoiding this, though, as it usually can cause geckos unnecessary stress at best and lead to fights at worst. As with the issue of cycling, you'll simply have to decide which approach you'd like to embrace. Let's talk about egg deposition. As your female gecko prepares to lay eggs, you'll need to provide a suitable deposition container. Learn how to set up a container with damp substrate and understand the egg-laying process. Discover the frequency of egg deposition and the care needed for the female post-laying. A small plastic container works well. Just cut a 2-inch diameter hole in the lid to provide the lizard with access to the interior. Inside the container, add several inches of slightly damp, not wet, potting soil or vermiculite. Let's talk about leopard gecko eggs. When ready, the female will crawl into the container and deposit 2 relatively large eggs. She'll usually bury them and then exit the chamber to drink water and rest. She'll continue to produce a new clutch once every 2 to 3 weeks for the duration of the breeding season. It is a good idea to pay special attention to the female following each clutch. Make sure she has water and a dish of calcium supplement powder available at all times and feed her heavily so that she can replenish her fat stores. Let's talk about egg incubation. Once the eggs are laid, it's time to transfer them to an incubator. We'll guide you on creating or selecting an incubator, preparing an incubation container, and setting the right temperature. Delve into the fascinating world of temperature-dependent sex determination and understand how to achieve your desired results. You can purchase an incubator or make one yourself. Just be sure that it is capable of holding a consistent temperature for the duration of the incubation period. Before you try to dig up the eggs, prepare an incubation container that will hold the eggs inside your incubator. A small plastic tub with a few small ventilation holes drilled in the side will work well. Fill the bottom of the container with damp, not wet, vermiculite. Remove the eggs from the egg deposition container carefully and mark the tops with a pencil. Use care to ensure that you place the eggs in an incubation container in the same orientation in which they were deposited so that you don't cause the developing embryos to die. Set your incubator to the desired temperature, more on this in a moment, and place the egg incubation container inside. Monitor the eggs throughout the incubation process, but try not to disturb them too much. If everything goes well, you should see the eggs begin to hatch in 1 to 3 months, depending in large part on the incubation temperature you choose. The higher the temperature selected, the quicker the eggs will hatch. Let's talk about incubation temperatures. There is one important aspect of egg incubation that requires further discussion: the temperature at which you'll incubate the eggs. Leopard geckos exhibit a phenomenon known as temperature-dependent sex determination, TDSD. This means that eggs incubated at some temperatures will become male, while other temperatures will produce female lizards. Intermediate temperatures will produce a statistical mix of male and female lizards. If you don't care which sex emerges, you can simply incubate your leopard gecko eggs between 80 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit. However, if you want to produce female geckos, you'll want to keep the incubator at the lower end of this range, between about 80 and 84 degrees. If you want to produce all male geckos, incubate the eggs at the high end of this range, between 88 and 90 degrees. Incubation temperatures of about 87 degrees will usually produce a mix of both sexes. Note that these temperatures are not 100% guaranteed to produce the desired sex, but they usually do. Let's talk about neonatal husbandry. When those little geckos finally hatch, it's crucial to set up a suitable habitat for their first week of life. Explore various nursery designs and learn about temperature and humidity considerations. Find out when to transition them to individual enclosures and start feeding them. When you start seeing little geckos emerging from their eggs, it is time to set up a nursery habitat for their first week or so of life. Different breeders utilize different designs for their hatchlings' first home, and some skip the nursery phase completely and simply set their hatchlings up in enclosures that are just like adult enclosures, but smaller. However, they are all broadly similar and feature a relatively Spartan habitat, with only a paper towel substrate, a shallow water dish, and a few hiding spots. This enclosure should be kept at about 80 degrees, and the humidity level should be slightly higher than that of an adult leopard gecko's habitat. Most leopard geckos will not eat until they shed their skin for the first time, which generally occurs about 1 week after hatching. This is a good time to move your young hatchlings into their own individual enclosures, with typical leopard gecko temperatures and humidity levels. You can also begin feeding the young lizards very small crickets at this time. And there you have it, a comprehensive guide on breeding leopard geckos. If you're considering taking on this rewarding venture, remember to follow the steps outlined in this video and consult with experienced breeders if needed. Good luck, and before you know it, you might be surrounded by a whole new generation of these fascinating creatures. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more reptile-related content.